welcome back to the Remote No Pressure Podcast. I'm very excited to be back, like I always am. There's something about being behind the microphone that really helps me relax. It helps me calm down a little bit. I don't know what it is. I've always been this way. I've always liked speaking in front of people, a public speaking kind of thing. I've never had a problem with that. I think some people... Now, right now, my jaws hurt. My jaws, because I've been running my hack for so long. So let me tell you what happened. Tomorrow is May the, whenever we publish this, tomorrow or whenever you listen, but May the 4th is my birthday. And this birthday in particular is very unusual because it's not unusual. Everyone has this birthday. It's the year that you turn 40. And so I recorded like 22 minutes of an episode of me just kind of complaining and murmuring about life. And I was so depressed after the 22 minutes, I had to stop. I had to delete the thing and I had to start a new episode because I'm just like, I can't subject these people to the depressing feelings and the my ideas, the things that I can't subject you to that. No one's. It's easy to find sad things in life. It's easy to do that. It's making people happy that people want, because people aren't naturally happy. People want to be happy. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do on the podcast here. Before we go on any longer, be sure to go down below if you're watching down on our YouTube or watching on our YouTube page, and be sure to click on the subscribe button. That would help us a lot. We're almost at 100 subscribers. We're trying to get to 1,000. Organically. So be sure to go there and check it out. Maybe you've been putting it off. He's adding, I don't know. Just go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Also leave some reviews. We always appreciate reviews. So it hasn't been easy. The COVID thing hasn't been easy for me. As an extroverted type person, it's really, really hard to sit at home for an extended period of time. So they're telling me, Jeff, hey, you know what you need to do? You need to celebrate Christmas, put some Christmas lights up. I heard of some people doing this. I'm really cynical. I'm like, it's dumb. But today, if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see me. I'm wearing my Griswold Family Christmas sweatshirt. It's my favorite sweatshirt that I own. And I can only wear it certain times here. So any excuse that I have, I'm going to wear the sweatshirt. Now, here's the deal. Depending on where you're living, I talked to Aaron Reed. He says like 90 degrees down there. Up here, it's still chilly. And I'm in the basement in our studio, and I'm chilly. So I wore my Griswold Family Christmas sweatshirt. So be sure to go. And I wore it for two reasons. Number one is I'm trying to cheer myself up. It's really comfortable. Number two is I may have gained a few lbs during this whole COVID-19 thing. And maybe or maybe not, I'm trying to cover up a few things. Okay. And that's okay with me. I'm perfectly fine with that. Well, I guess if I was fine with that, I wouldn't be trying to hide it, but nonetheless. So today on the Remote No Pressure Podcast, I just want to take a minute. We don't have an interview, and Bill's not here either. So I just wanted to take a quick minute and just tell you a little bit about, I just wanted to take a minute with you guys and just say, I'm overwhelmed with gratefulness by where we are as a podcast. We're at I think at 110,000 unique downloads now, which is pretty cool. I mean, I know if we did paid advertising and all that other stuff, I'm sure we would have more. But I'm really grateful that you listen to our podcast. I'm grateful for everything and where we've come. I'm excited about where we're going. We were really hoping this year with the podcast that the live events would really take off. We had Aaron Reed's thing that was coming up this week, his book launch, Fly Fishing Austin and Central Texas. Be sure to check that out, Aaron Reed. We had his book launch coming up here on Thursday. This coming Thursday, it got canceled. And then we had a live event in Holland, Michigan in March. We had over 100 people interested in coming out to that. Our first true big event with fly tying giveaways and everything. And that got canceled. And so the whole podcast is kind of at a standstill. We're just putting out content, and we continue to do that. But it's just like, okay, well, kind of what's next? So I'm very excited for this thing to be lifted so we can go on as life as normal. Now, I wanted to talk to a little bit about, because my friend called me the other day and or texted me or emailed me. I can't remember which one it was. But he said, Jeff, listening to the podcast reminds me of when I was in eighth grade. In eighth grade. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And he said the good parts of eighth grade. But eighth grade is probably the most awkward years of your life. And I thought, yeah, that's an interesting time that he chose because me and Bill can act like ding dong sometimes. I think it started with the Asian carp episode maybe. And then everything just kind of went downhill from there. Just kind of joke around a lot. We have a good time. We have the Asian carp episode. We have the Ghost of Frozen Patty, which I think is just legendary. The Dogman episodes. And we've had some really funny times. I mean, even down to, we have a house band here, a band that plays for us. Even the name of that band is quite the joke. And I'm not going to say it because I'm trying not to act like an eighth grader. My kid's going into sixth grade next year, so that kind of really puts things in perspective. But it goes back to, we're funny. We like to have a good time, but more than anything, I started this podcast in the basement of my home because I am a seeker. Yes, I'm an angler. I don't know if I consider myself an outdoorsman completely. I could probably live off the land for a couple days, but I'm not like an outdoorsman, right? I'm not some of these like Alan Crater from BHA that was on last week. I love fly fishing, but I started this podcast to spread the gospel of fly fishing, right? And that's why I started it, how it's helped me with mentally. We've had a lot of guests on. I can think of quite a few: Brian Kosminski, Ross Slayton, Adam Beam, some of these guys that have really struggled with addiction, PTSD, and really have coped with life through fly fishing. And I'm forgetting a lot of people. I mean, we've had, I don't know, if we had 200 episodes, I think. I know we're at almost 40 in season 3, but we've had close to 200 episodes, maybe more. And it's interesting to me, the reason I started it, I didn't know if anyone else had the same story as me. I was what I like to call a corporate refugee. I was really struggling with life. And I thought, I went to the doctor and we had a new baby. I wasn't ever sleeping, which I know is part of the problem. And I said, I told my therapist, I said, something is wrong with me. I'm not doing well. She said, Jeff, you're not crazy. You need a hobby. You need to do something. And so I took up fly fishing, and then I'm like, man, this thing really saved my life. I'm going to share this with other people. And I didn't even know what the fly fishing business was. I didn't know what the fly fishing, I didn't know what the business was. I didn't even know there was a business, right? And then I got into it and started interviewing people, and they all had the same stories. I think about Dave McCoy and then Joe DeMalderis. If you listen to our very first episode 01, Joe DeMalderis came on and talked about how he left his corporate job to become a fly fishing guide. And so many people that I talked to over the past 3 years, have all had similar stories, So it goes back to, why did I start this podcast? Why are we doing what we're doing? We're not there to just kind of goof around, and that's not our sole reason. We enjoy that. We enjoy it a lot. And I think mainly because Bill's so freaking funny. I can't help but laugh when I'm with Wild Bill. It's just the way he is. He's just really quick. But I really appreciate him, and I appreciate the laughter and the banter. But more than anything, I just want people to know that the podcast here is we're seekers. We're seeking something. I grew up in a very religious home. I wasn't allowed to listen to anything but Christian music. I wasn't allowed to watch any PG-13 movies. Even PG had, there was some definite parental guidance there. Very sheltered. And I thought that the only real job was being in the ministry, is being in a pastoral position. My father was a pastor. Both my grandfathers were pastors, and I was a seeker. I'd ask questions. I'd ask deep questions as a kid because I didn't understand things. I didn't understand. I didn't understand, and I could never find the answers that I needed. And I feel like I mean, like I said, I'm turning 40 tomorrow. As you get older, you realize like, okay, no one really knows the answer. I wished I could be really confident that, X or Y religion is like the absolute, this is the truth. And I wish there was a way to prove it. Or a certain way of thinking. It's kind of like I read 10 years ago the book Millionaire Next Door. And you think, well, if I read this, or if I read enough business books about entrepreneurs, then maybe I too will be a millionaire, or I will be this awesome entrepreneur, or But in reality, all of our stories are so different, All of our stories are so unique that okay, So I've always been like this seeker. I've always been trying to find the answer, and I can't give up. I can't stop. I can't stop looking for it, and it keeps me up at night. And fly fishing is really what helps calm me. It's really that I think it's Tom Brokaw, which I'm not a huge fan of Tom Brokaw. I'm not a big fan of any media these days. But I think it was Tom Brokaw that said if fly fishing was religion, this is or fishing was religion, then fly fishing would be high church, and I agree with him on that. It's really where I find solace, and I think the older I get, the less I know, the less absolute I am on subjects. You think as you get older, I remember thinking about my grandpa. He believed this one thing, and it was like, this is, he grew up during, the Depression. So he was he was a Democrat, right? He was a staunch Democrat because that's what pulled them out of the Depression. But yet he was a pastor in Texas, and like, back in the 90s, it was like the pro-choice, pro-life thing. And even though, the Democratic Party platform, he didn't agree with the pro-choice thing, he was still a Democrat till the day he died, because this is the truth. This is the honest to God truth. And if you listen to the podcast, I'm neither Democrat nor Republican. I'm a libertarian for most part, and I'm pretty much in the middle. I hate them equally. And that's not because I can't make a decision. It's because they both do some really dumb things. But I've never really fit in one camp or another camp. I've always been seeking out more. And I remember it was one of the authors that was. I was actually, I didn't take any journalism. I took a speech class. I never took a journalism class. So maybe, if you listen to some of my interviews, you can tell I don't have any professional training. But I remember there was an author on the podcast a while ago, and he was talking about, he has a spiel about his books and all this other stuff. And I asked him this question. I said, he looks too deeply into things, and that's how he comes up with ideas and this and that. And I asked him, have you ever thought about that as a blessing or a curse? And I remember him stopping, and I remember him thinking and then he responded to me, and this guy's like an old school writer, right? This guy's like New York Times bestseller. And he stopped, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I think I stumped this guy. And he's like, you know what? No one's ever asked me that question. It was a high point in my life. Now, I'm not trying to brag about it, but I feel like a lot of the people I talk to in this industry, a lot of the writers, a lot of the fly anglers who understand and truly get this podcast, they're seekers. We're seeking something. What is it? It doesn't make sense. And then it reminds me of was it Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie, or was it the Santa Claus? I think it was Rudolph, when he's like, we could be independent, and then because he wanted to be a dentist, and then he goes out there and says, I want to be independent, and then Rudolph says, well, we could be independent together, and I feel that way a lot about my listeners. Like we're free thinkers, we don't really fit in the box, and we're independent, and in this podcast, we can be independent together, right? We're seekers. And for some people, it's not a big deal. I mean, life is easy, and I envy those people. I envy the people who can go to work for 40 hours. They've only had one job for the government or whatever. And they come home at night, they work their 40, put their 40 in. They're going to put their 20 years in. They're going to retire with benefits, pension, all that other stuff. And they're perfectly content. Perfectly content. But my mind never stops. My mind never stops. And I'm not an alcoholic. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke weed, even though it's legal in Michigan. I don't do any of that stuff. But I can see how people could become that way just because life is not black and white. For some people it is. I think if you grew up that way, where you had a really stable home and everything was normal. If you guys know my background, that's not the case at all. But I think maybe that it's easier for you to fall into that. It's weird. You go here and people have lived in this town for their whole lives. I don't know how many times. People. Sometimes I just wonder. People wonder if I'm telling the truth. I've lived in so many places. I lived in Bay City, Texas. I lived in St. Augustine, Texas. I lived in Corsicana, Texas. I lived in Dallas, Texas. I lived in Fort Worth. I lived in Houston. I've lived in all these places. I've lived in St. Louis. I've lived in Grand Rapids. I've lived in a lot of places, and I wasn't military or anything. I moved a lot, and so I never really had that stable. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But the reason the podcast exists, the reason that we are here the reason why we have the Remote No Pressure podcast is because we are truly seeking. We're seeking out those things. We're seeking out the truth. We're seeking out clarity. We're seeking out the truth. I don't know how else to put it. And we probably aren't going to find it this way, but we can be independent together, right? We can be seekers together. And it's really funny because everyone I talk to, it's the same thing. It's the same way. We're all seeking the people I've connected with. Not everyone likes the podcast. I mean, if you look at our reviews, we got some 1 stars there, But I just wanted you guys to know that I started this podcast. Why I started the podcast? It really is because I'm a seeker. And now that I'm turning 40, I turned 40 on Monday, on May the 4th. It's like just really looking back on things. So, hey, I tell you what, maybe you've turned 40. I'm sure a lot of you guys, because I know the demographic that's listening to us. I know some of you are in your truck probably laughing, thinking, I wish I was 40, And some people are listening in their Subarus thinking, I'll never be 40. But the reality of it is we're all going to, I think it's great. I think it's great I'm alive still at 40. I've almost died several times in car accidents. A car accident. I had a staph infection, almost died. There are 2 times I came really close to dying. So the fact I'm still alive at 40 is a real blessing. So I can look at it that way too. But do us a favor. Maybe you are a seeker, right? Maybe that's who you are. If you're on our YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe or whatever, but go down below and leave us a message. Leave us a message about that time when you contemplated life, right? It doesn't have to be like a paragraph. I'll send you a free decal if you do that. Just put something on our YouTube page about how, there was this cool thing in life and how fly fishing helped you out and how we're independent together. Just go down below, comment, or leave a review. I'll send you guys a free decal. And I just want to say thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all that you're doing. For checking us out every week, for buying from our sponsors, for doing those things. We really appreciate that. And I love you guys. This is my soul. This is my this helps me a lot. So I appreciate you very much. And here's to another couple of years here at the podcast. Here's to another year. And until next time, try to go fishing. Until next time, go fishing.